This is a story of boy meets girl. The boy, Justin Otto of Lactabonnet, Manitoba, grew up believing that he'd never truly be happy until the day he met the one. This belief stemmed from early exposure to hardcore emo music and a total misreading of the movie High Fidelity. The girl, Cassie Pyatt of Keswick, Ontario, did not share this belief. Since the disintegration of her parents' marriage, she'd only loved two things. The first was her long red hair, and the second was how easily she could cut it off and feel nothing. Justin meets Cassie April 6th. He knows almost immediately she is the one he has been searching for. This is a story of boy meets girl. But you should know up front, this is not a love story. This is a podcast.
Hello, everyone. You guessed it. This week's episode, we're talking movies.
More specifically, the media that shaped us.
Classic flicks, heartthrobs, tearjerkers, and you guessed it.
Not just movies, Cass. How is love sold to us, you might ask?
So get your popcorn ready and make sure you have your peanut
Of course, we're going
M&Ms.
to talk movies.
RomComs, baby. So dim the lights,
Advertising,
folks.
for instance, holidays, music.
And movies.
Yes, Cass, of course, movies. But first,
Roll the film.
Stop that right now.
Oh, okay, ma'am. What do you have against
We
movies?
will
Yes.
get to the movies, Cass.
That's
Gosh,
right, we will.
darn it. This week, we get to the bottom of what love is on this, our second episode, Media, the Films, Advertising, and Music That Shaped Our Love.
This week, we'll be looking at just how much our views, hopes, and dreams around love have been influenced by the rom-coms we've watched growing up. Now, play the movie.
All right, what do I care? Love is goes to the movies. Just press play already.
Yep, done. Well, we're wondering what love is. Can you let us know? Oh, we're wondering what love is. Can you let us know?
Hello, listeners. Justin here, co-host of Love Is and Eternal Pessimist. Say hi to my co-host.
Hi, listeners. Cassie here. Yeah, and you guessed it. I'm still in love with love. And this week, we're going to look at our top 5 favorite rom-coms. Number 1, When Harry Met Sally. Number 2, Never Been Kissed. Number 3, Roman Holiday. Number 4, While You Were Sleeping. And last but not least, number 5, High Fidelity.
Oh, get your popcorn ready, folks. We're getting into it. Movie number 1, listeners, for your consideration. When Harry Met Sally.
I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
Justin, this one came really high on your list.
So high.
Can you tell me what about this movie stuck with you so much over the years?
Oh my God, what's stuck with me? I mean, it's tough to put a sieve through my life experience with this movie, but I think what truly sticks with me about When Harry Met Sally is the idea that love is something you learn, something that you build, and that it doesn't always happen right away.
And I think that is a beautiful takeaway from this movie as well, because if we put When Harry Met Sally against other movies, everybody just kind of meets their person pretty much right away, and they all know, whereas When Harry Met Sally, it's a very slow burn. They almost don't even know that they're the ones for each other until the bitter end.
Oh, 100% agree, Cassie. I'm also a stickler. I hate as a writer making titles, but what a perfect title. When Harry Met Sally, So the second they meet, which is 30 seconds into the movie, you're like, boom, things are going to click this road trip. And right away, it's like, that not in a million years, except the fact that you're watching a movie, would you expect these two people to be together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also enjoy in this movie is that they literally have no intention of seeing each other ever again, but the universe somehow just kind of keeps pulling them back together. They're always like
universe
in an orbit with each other, no matter how far away they go, no matter how many lovers they've had, they always kind of end up somehow in the same space.
I think we talked about these orbits before, Cass, in our conversations about like so many of these movies, and we'll get into this with some other films, is that they presuppose this idea that love at first sight is the bar.
Yes.
And yet when Harry Met Sally looks into the camera of Love at First Sight and goes, no, love it like 80th sight.
Yeah, Sally was like, I want nothing to do with you. You clearly are just a mean, sad guy.
He's a wiener. He's a wiener.
He's a big wiener.
I love him, but he's a wiener. I mean, I've
Yeah.
spent too much of my life trying to be like Harry when I probably should have spent most of my life trying to be like Sally.
Yeah. I think it is a good lesson for all of us. It's a good movie all around.
I think there's so much agreement on being great. I would propose the question to you, Cassie. Could you take something negative from the film? If we're going to talk about where our love lives come from and lessons we've learned, I think I've learned a lot of lessons from When Harry Met Sally, but is there some things about the movie that you're like, red flag?
If we are comparing When Harry Met Sally against all other films on our list, I feel like this one is the most realistic in the sense that they have little to no expectations on each other. Because they are like, we are friends. We are not in a relationship, so nor do I expect you to do certain things for me, or do I expect you to show up in certain ways for me. So in that sense, I feel like they get to be their most true selves with each other. And I think that that's what is so important in a relationship, that all of the other rom-coms that you see, people are pining over each other, trying to be somebody different than they're not. And these two people are just like, this are showing up as themselves and are like, take me or leave me. And then they kind of try the love thing out, and their love grows over time. And then I think they both realize that this is what love is, as opposed to it being that light bulb.
Is love is When Harry Met Sally? We cracked it.
Oh my God, we don't have to do any more episodes. Everybody right now, stop this podcast and
watch
go
that
listen
movie.
to When Harry Met Sally.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the answer.
But it is true. I feel like every movie outside of When Harry Met Sally, and maybe there's some few exceptions that our listeners can make us aware on social media of, is that we see these movies where they either get together right at the end and the whole movie's been building to it, and then you assume when the credits roll, now they'll get to know each other. Whereas in When Harry Met Sally, they know each other. That's why the button is, spoiler alert, them looking into the camera talking about how they've been together for a few years now, and they're still happy and in love. Out of 10 hearts, 10 being a perfect representation of love, makes you feel good, fulfills all the criteria of a great rom-com, something to aspire to.
I think I would give When Harry Met Sally an 8. And I think where it's missing my 2 points is that I just wish there was a little more chemistry between Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. I mean, not that I don't buy it, but I just feel like there's other rom-coms that you watch that you're like, oh, this love is fire, and oh my God. And this one is kind of like just a steady heartbeat the whole way.
Yeah.
Because there's not like this, like, is he going to write me? Is he going to come to my window? Is it? It's like, yeah, he might. And I'm pretty okay with that. But sometimes because it's a movie, it's nice to have a little of that magic peppered in there.
Would you recommend this film to formative year Cass?
I connected a lot more to this movie now than I did when I was younger. But I do think that this movie's good to watch to lay the foundations of what a relationship could look like. That
Mhm.
kind of starts off as like a friendship and also kind of like a hated, begrudging, we
Yeah.
have to be together.
Yeah. Part of love when I think about it is timing. And now this movie makes me think of less like it's timing, but it's more time. Like so few people do you get chances to run into. I feel
Yeah.
like there's something universal about like think about the people you've dated or met. It doesn't always happen this way, but it seems to always be some sort of situation where even if you aren't completely crushing on them, you have to spend time with them. Either it's like a work romance, a friend of a friend, you're doing a show together, you are play a recreational sport and they're on a team. Like there's like being around someone. I tend to find that like that's where love comes from.
I always thought from watching rom-coms that I was gonna like just like bump into somebody and that was gonna be my person. I
Mm-hmm.
never really thought that it could have been somebody who I was just around all the time. But it makes
Yeah.
sense that it would be somebody that you share interests with and
Mm-hmm.
that you see all of the time. Like
Yeah.
why how why, like where would this random person that you bumped into at a stop sign and you're like, oh my god, oh my god, like you are the person that hasn't shown, like who's going to open the
It's
new
crazy.
door to something I've
Yeah.
never seen
Oh.
before.
If I had a meet cute in my life, it wouldn't even. And I'm obsessed with rom-coms. It would go right over my head. If I bumped into like
Yeah.
this like beautiful, intelligent woman on the street, I would pick up their books and I'd probably be rushed somewhere and have my iPod headphones in, and they'd be like, "Thank you." And I'd be like, "Yeah, no problem." And I'd be rushing across the street, and the movie watcher would go,
Yeah, what are you doing?
and it would just
Turn
go
back
to
around. Yeah,
my movie,
yeah.
my rom-com would go to
Yeah.
credits in 2 minutes. I'd be like, there'd be like a funny scene with me and my friends, and I'd be like, yeah, you know, love's not for me. And I'd walk out the door, I'd bump into her, and they'd be like, that's the girl. And I would walk across the street, and it would be like directed by.
Yeah, yeah. I would still watch that, man.
Oh, well, I like that. I like 8 hearts out of 10 hearts. That's pretty high because I
What
feel
would you
like,
what would you give it, Justin?
oh boy, I think you made a great point. I think I was gonna give it 9.5 hearts, but I think I'm gonna give it a
Wow.
9. 9 hearts.
Whoa.
9 hearts.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think
And
it just missing that oomph. But I think 13-year-old me would have gave it an 8, which I think is still a crazy high score.
that is a very crazy high score.
But it's getting a better score the older I get.
Yeah. The more you live life, the more that when Harry Met Sally becomes more of an understood reality.
Yeah, and that's why when anyone argues me about When Harry Met Sally, I go like, you can argue whether you like it less or not, but you can't argue that's not like a very accurate description of adult love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just true to me. It's just true.
It's
That's
just
just how
true.
that's just how I feel. It also made me laugh at love a little bit.
And how so?
It feels like the joke of the movie is that love is ridiculous, and even though love is ridiculous, you can still choose to fall in love. Yeah.
I love that.
And that love doesn't always look the way you think it should.
Yeah.
And this is an adage that I've fallen in love with is sometimes you can't choose who you love.
I love that, man.
Yeah. Wow. When Harry Met Sally has really...
Woo!
The bar is set, folks. We're going to make a hard shift into Never Been Kissed.
Sorry I'm late. Took me forever to get here.
I know what you mean.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Really excited to be launching this movie to the listeners. Never Been Kissed. This movie, unlike When Harry Met Sally, is so fictional and ridiculous.
Wait. Time out. being asked as a lead reporter at a magazine to go back to high school to write about the students and then falling in love with your English professor is far-fetched. Please continue.
Yeah. And this is what I love about rom-coms, because it's like everything I've ever imagined or didn't even know that I wanted to imagine is out on screen and playing out in front of you, and it's amazing. But it is funny watching this movie again for this podcast and realizing how this wouldn't this is a ridiculous movie, and it is so bad of a teacher who is clearly putting the moves on a 17-year-old.
We got into this while we were watching it. I hated that I was coming to the defense of this movie because it was a hard stance to take that he's trying, but I don't know if trying is good enough. He's trying not to have feelings for a teenager.
Right.
He's trying so hard.
So very hard.
But is that the bar we've set for men? You try really hard and hope that they end up being 25-year-old reporters. Please.
Yeah, lucky for him. I feel like that doesn't happen very often.
No, not often enough. This is the problem I have with this film from the side of wanting it to be great, is that when we talked about these films, listeners, we put them on the list because it's like, how did they affect us from a childhood? I spent so much of my teen years not hoping I would go back to high school, but just trying to be everything Josie wasn't when she was a kid. I was like, don't be like, it was don't be a nerd, find a way to be cool. I think I wanted to play sports, but even as a kid, I feel like an extra emphasis to like, even her brother Rob being like, I wanted to like play baseball. It was like, there was a big onus on don't be Josie Grossi.
Yeah. Gave me this like sense of hope, being like, okay, like you're a nerdy person, like you don't really fit in, but there's going to be a guy out there who you look up to, who is smart and handsome, and they're going to see past all of that, and they're actually going to see what's at your core. So you don't have to like try to be cool, or you don't have to try to be something that you're not, because there's going to be somebody who sees that in you, and it's going to be awesome. And I think that makes this movie so great. And also, unlike When Harry Met Sally, I feel like there is a bit of like them both being excited to want to be with each other.
There's real tension.
There really is. Will they? Won't they? And a handful of scenes.
Yeah. Which this isn't a positive quality, but when you're a teenager watching this movie, it doesn't really dawn on you the creepiness of the professor. You're just like, all you see is smart dude, like attractive, like this
put
thing put together. And then when you get older, you're like, all right, that's a little creepy.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're so right. You're so right. And I have to say too, I do like the grand gesture at the end.
Grand gestures. We haven't talked about grand gestures yet.
Yes. Yeah. Oh.
Never been kissed might possibly be the most grand. She puts it in the paper.
In the paper.
There. 7th inning stretch. There's a time limit. It's almost like an action movie. You're like, what's going to happen? The whole town comes out.
There's reporters. It's on a baseball game.
And in that pocket of him not showing, the freaking string instruments start up, and all you hear is come in. It's just like boom. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm over here sobbing, like, what's happening?
And there's distance, like he has to come to her.
Oh, that's right.
You know it's coming, and then there's a spinning camera.
Magical.
That's what screws us up. So like, it weirdly helps its rating in my book, and then the older I get, hurts its rating, because like, I don't have a reporter job where I can tell the person who's mad at me but in love with me to meet me at a baseball game of major importance to then kiss me and declare their love for me. Like, that's, even if I tried to set that up, it would come across like the Joker and not like never been kissed.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right. It would be like, like ransom note guy. Who's
It's
like,
crazy. Meet
how-
me at the seventh inning stretch baseball game and tell me you love me or not. And they'd be like, well, I did love you, but that's fucked up, so I'm not going to show up. And you'd be like, they don't love me. I'm like, no, I don't want to go in front of 3,000 people.
Oh my god, yeah. People would like not let you into the baseball diamond, I feel like.
Are you the guy? No,
Sorry, man. This is creepy, man. Yeah.
that's crazy. Love looks different.
So, Justin, the big
Yes.
question on this one.
All right.
How has this movie shaped your way of love?
I mean, on pure entertainment and watchability, it's tops.
Me
But
too.
for how
I
it
agree.
shaped my love, I think it. Let's be fair. I think it gets 4 out of 5 fucked me ups.
Okay.
Like this movie, it made me insecure about being a nerd. It made me look to the wrong people for love. It made me dream about like maybe overthink my future. It made me think that grand gestures were the only way to get people. It made me question a lot of things. I think I got a lot more questions, and I think I didn't need that at 14. I didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was gonna like flat out come out and say it, and this is judged on me now, because it would get a higher rating of me at 13, because I think you misinterpret the negative things about a movie. I think now I'm only going, because I'm still so charmed by it, 6 hearts. 6 out of 10 hearts, and that hurts me to say. 6 out of 10 hearts.
Where does it lose the points now?
All four are lost on now unpacking all my childhood trauma about love. It should probably lose more. If I'm being honest, I think I just don't want to give a movie less than 6. I'm being honest. I'm almost say 5, but we'll leave it at 6, because Drew Barrymore gives it a full 3 points, 3 hearts every movie.
Yeah. Whew, that's a good one.
Yeah. How about you, Cass? Are you in the same boat, or are you still fully romanced by this film?
You make some great points. I would give it a 7.
7. That's fair. It's fun. We had so much fun watching it.
So much fun. So much fun watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I do love the way they talk about love in this movie.
Mhm.
And I do feel like it could be something that brings you down on how you view love, because she is so hopeful and but that's the magic that I love about rom-coms, and that's why
Mhm.
they're so great to me. It's because I feel like that love exists at some capacity.
Mhm.
And it reminds me why I like love. But then does this movie show that we dress love up to an expectation that is not real?
Mhm. See, whereas this is the first time I've noticed in a while, I forgot how awesome her boss and her coworker friend at the office, they get together. That's the real
Right.
love story of the movie.
That's also a love story.
That's the real, like, to me, the older I get, that's the love story. I'm like, I love
Oh
the
my
B story
God.
in movies.
Isn't that wild now that the older we get, and then you see the crabby boss and the high-strung friend, and that's what you go for now. That's what warms the heart.
Yeah.
Just 2 cold hard people who who hate the world,
Yeah.
and then they're like, you know what, let's be together, and this is great.
Yeah. And this might be getting too deep, but think of the film if it was real life. Those 2 characters watch Drew Barry or Josie's they watch her life because it's playing out in the newspaper. They go to the baseball game. They're falling in love the same way we're falling in love while we watch the movie.
Right.
Like Josie's story is making them
Exactly.
fall in love, but they're not going to
Wow.
have. So they're being like, we don't need a grand gesture, but sometimes we need grand gestures to remind us that love is possible.
Justin, you've said 2 great t-shirt quotes right now throughout this episode. Good.
Well, listeners, it's in the top 5 for a reason, but it just doesn't quite have the heart score to push it past When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
Not that any movie really should. Like that's a tough beat. All right, listeners, we're about to talk about the classic of all classics. I don't even know where I would hold this movie in regards to all movies, not even just rom-coms. We are talking about the one, the only Roman Holiday.
I will cherish my visit here in memory as long as I live.
I had never even heard of Roman Holiday before until this very episode.
Well, that's the best part about this podcast, listeners, is that we're all learning as we go. Now, why we picked it? Well, I'll take this on from Cass. We picked Roman Holiday because, in my opinion, it set the standard. When we think of rom-coms, we have, probably our lifetime to think about it. But in true fashion, it all came from somewhere. And I think this idea was distilled in this, dare I say, masterpiece. Dare I say it? Roman Holiday stars in her first performance, which got an Oscar nomination, the one and only Audrey Hepburn and the always hunky Mr. Gregory Peck.
Hey.
Impossibly the most charming film I've ever seen, which is saying a lot. But here, if you haven't seen it, let me give you little Cole's notes of Roman Holiday. Man, writer, Italy, tired of being a princess. She walks away from the guard and from the place she's staying in Italy. But just imagine it. A young American man in Italy running around a city with a literal princess, a princess who just wants a regular life. And she gets to experience that in this one day. I'm falling in love just listening to myself. Cass, did you find yourself as enraptured by this film as I am just talking about it?
Justin, I have to give you big thumbs up for this one because although I had never heard of Roman Holiday before, I was blown away by this love story. Okay, I'm gonna spoiler. Okay, listeners, if you're listening and you want to watch, if you want to watch this, it's time to plug your ears. But the whole thing at the end is this gentleman, because of his love for the princess, because she runs away and then she realizes her duty and has to go back to be like, I have to be a princess now. So she goes back knowing that she can never be with this man who she had such a great day with. And he doesn't even print the story. And at the end, the press comes to meet the princess because she's back. And he is just in line like all the normal other press people. And one by one, she shakes all of their hands and then comes to Gregory Peck. And they just act as if they're meeting for the first time. But we all know, we all see the vibes. And
but that 10, like almost full 10 seconds, it feels like, of them just looking at one another.
And then she goes her way and then he goes his way. And that's it. That relationship lives in a moment in time for one day. It's amazing. It was great.
Yeah.
Blew my socks off, Justin. Well done. Good choice.
Thank you. Well, Cass, I feel like we've run through it, but can you come up with one great thing about this film? And if there is, no judgment, one bad thing.
I think one great thing about this film that they touched upon that I think is really hard to live with sometimes in your own life is the fact of finding a love of your life and having to walk away from it and being okay with it. And I think that is another type of love that is really hard to deal with because they both had this great day and they were both like, we know this can't work. So like, let's just be thankful for the time that we had together and roll the credits. Like, I think that is huge. And they weren't angry at each other about it. They were just like, they knew that this had to be done. I think that's a good.
Yeah. And that somehow they could hold on to the fact that they had that day. And like, that's enough. Their love is so strong that if they look back, maybe they're with someone in the future and they can always just hold them in their heart. I'm not that big of a person.
Yeah, right. It's like, let's be together and ride this to the bitter end until we hate each other and until we
Yeah.
can't stand each other.
Instead, they're like, no, that'll be one perfect like 48 hours.
Yeah, right.
Well, Cassie, I'd ask how these movies shaped you or fucked you up, but since this is such a new watch to you,
Mm-hmm.
how do you think this would have shaped you if you were younger? If you could assume what young Cassie would have thought of watching this film?
Very good question. What I love about this movie is to take what comes and be grateful for everybody that shows up in your life, regardless for how long they are going to be in your life. Because if you're having a good time, soak that in, and that in itself should be enough. Or we should be able to be more okay with people and moments lasting in your life for only a certain amount of time and maybe not forever. And I think that that was a really nice takeaway after watching this movie. But if I watched this when I was younger, I think I would have hoped that I would become a princess and then escape and then wait for a very handsome man reporter to want to scoop me up and take me around Italy.
Oh, don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all hope for that?
Okay, Justin, same question right back at you. Since you did
Yeah.
grow up with this movie,
Oh,
how has this shaped your way that you view love?
oh. I mean, I think in good ways and in bad. I feel like I feel 100% it showed me how natural love can come, how just the act of sharing space can be such a big act, and that love can bring meaning to a life. It made me feel the grandeur of just like another person. I don't think I'd ever really fathomed it. Was like I'd fathomed like huge crushes and like goofy teen movies and just like the act of wanting someone to like kiss you, but I never really fundamentally saw just two adults fall in love. I don't think I had a vision of love that wasn't attached to like teenage angst and making out and stuff. I never thought of adults falling in love until I saw this movie. My assumption by the end of the movie, other than being totally wrecked, is always one of, I think they're better people because of each other now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not, I don't think it matters, but whether or not Gregory Peck goes on to be a great reporter or she goes on to like be very stately and a great like serving whatever family and whatever courtly duties come with being royalty, but that because of one another, there's something extra to what they put on the earth, what they do.
Yeah. Because
Maybe
of
it
that
makes them more
experience.
hopeful, more thoughtful, maybe they found reason. I don't know if either of I feel like the reason why they're so connected is that you don't really realize it till later in the movie, at least for me, that both of them are sort of restless.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know
That's
if
a
what,
really good point. Like, she wants to escape her life, but I think she's more aware of it. And
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't even really realize how kind of mundane and like cyclical his life has become.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and so I think that they were both trying to run away from just their own lives without even knowing it. And I think they both, by meeting, were able to show each other the other side of the coin.
Yeah. It just makes me think that because so much of our exploration on love is how can it make you better together, or that how can it like just the act of love being such a crazy thing, but we rarely talk about how love can make you better unrelated to the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like how falling in love can make you better at what you do, make you a better person, make you more thoughtful, maybe make you change some things you didn't like before, that it can be a catalyst to other things. It can almost be like, in a funny way, like a near-death experience.
Yeah. Well, great movie. Okay.
It definitely fucked me up a little bit, though.
Oh, yes. Okay. And how so?
Because, and this is my only downfall of the whole movie, but it needs to be in the script to happen. But the fact that she's a princess always, always fucked me up. Looking to upholding some ideal woman that would just sweep into my life, which the whole point of a story like that is that you're living your life and you're doing the things you want to do, and they stumble into it. But to be like on the lookout for that person is impossible. And as much as I hope the best for myself and everyone out there, I think that most of us are going to have to come to grips with the fact that we're not going to meet and fall in love with the princess. Unfortunately. Some of us will.
Justin, who do you think you're talking to right now?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Listeners, call in and get the affection of one Queen Cassie.
Hello. Yeah.
All right, Cassie, I think we're time to do a simple heart rating system on this film.
I would give this movie 8 hearts out of 10.
8. That's a lot of hearts, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it lose hearts for you, Cassie?
I think one of the hearts is I wish I'd seen it sooner.
Oh, that's interesting.
And another one, even though this is a plus of the movie, I would say the fact that they don't end up together breaks my heart. But I also do feel that it is actually a very good ending. But it breaks my heart.
It breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Still, it's one of our higher ratings.
Mhm.
And for myself, this I thought, when I first thought of it, was just a runaway 10 out of 10 hearts. But as I said before, I think I'm going to have to lose a full heart for the fact that she's a princess, which is inherent to the story. I know, I can all hear you groaning, but it just reminds me of a time when I was a kid and a time now where I'll meet my princess, but I'll never meet a princess. And I'm sticking to it. 9 out of 10 hearts. The only heart broken in my rating was my own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Whew. Roman Holiday, a classic. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor.
Agreed. It's worth the watch.
Lightning round!
The lightning round!
This time, it's for keeps.
Okay, Justin, are you ready for this week's lightning round?
Oh, born ready as usual.
Okay, man, here we go. Number 1. Would you want to be in a rom-com and why?
Ooh, yes, twofold. Sounds super fun. And B, if it was for my job, I'd love to get paid to be in a rom-com. Done.
Yes. Okay, great. Number 2. What is the most romantic gesture you would do for someone?
Just off the top of my head, I think I would jump out of a helicopter. You know how like there's like the free flying parachute guys, and I would land with a bouquet of flowers in my hand.
Dude, that is so extreme, and I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. What is the most romantic gesture you'd like to have done for you?
Ooh, I think I like to keep it simple. There's a very well done episode of Parks and Rec that I like where Ron Swanson has his birthday coming up, and he's not a big birthday person. And I don't know if I'm a huge like express your love person either. So I think a huge romantic gesture for me would be a night to myself. What he gets is a steak, a glass of his favorite whiskey, maybe a movie on. If they catered a night to myself, which I rarely give, that would be lovely.
Great. That's a great request.
Make that be
Okay, number 4. Why do we make rom-coms if they are such a superficial version of love?
money, man.
Wow.
You know
okay.
what? I think we make them superficial because it's easier than the real thing, you know? It's easy to sell, it's easy to chew. It's like the candy of movies. You want it, you want it, you want to eat it, but it doesn't last.
Yeah. Okay, well said. Number 5. Last but not least, are rom-coms good for love?
Yes and no.
Nice and sweet. Love that.
All right, Cass, are you ready for your lightning?
Woo! Dude, I'm pumped. I'm ready for it. Let's go.
All right, Cass. Number 1, do you consider yourself the lead character in your love story or the person who enters the lead's life?
Oh, Justin, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm obviously the lead in my own rom-com, baby.
Obviously. All right. Number 2,
Yes.
do you consider yourself a Harry or a Sally?
Well, Justin, this is a great question. Originally, I would have thought I was a Harry because he's like a funny guy. But the more that I think about it, I actually relate more to Sally. I don't think I have all her same quirks, but I agree with her on like waiting for the right person to like love. Like she does stuff from a place of like more than just let's hook up and leave. She's kind of like, I'm in it to win it. And I really appreciate and resonate with that. So I'm a Sally. And she's got great hair. So thank you, Meg Ryan.
Oh my God. Thank you, Meg Ryan.
Gorge.
Here, folks.
The whole video.
Heard it here, folks. Cassie is a Sally for anyone who needs that
Yes.
information in the future. Number 3, Cass, is love the best thing we humans do?
I think yes. It's a hard question, but I think it is because it's selfless and it opens us up. And I think if we do it, I was going to say if we do it right, which is also an interesting thing because I don't think you can do love wrong if it's coming from a pure place. But I think if you're really feeling it, I think love can be magic and bring so much magic to your life and to others.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Number 4.
Okay.
Is the romantic comedy a guilty pleasure movie?
Okay, Justin, don't make me feel bad about enjoying something that I love. First off, listeners, I'm going to say, let's take the word guilty right out of that sentence because hands down, rom-coms are just a pleasure for me. So no ifs, ands, or buts. I friggin' love a rom-com.
Number 5. A lesson, Cass, you learned from rom-coms you still use today.
A lesson that I've learned from rom-coms, I would say, is the magic of rom-coms and the ability to, when you get knocked back down, to believe and hope that there is a better after the heartbreaks.
That brings us to the end of the lightning round.
The lightning round!
This brings us to our 4th film of our top 5, and I just have to say, I have seen every rom-com, and somehow I still hadn't heard of this one. It had slipped through my fingers, as they say. Not even on my radar. Like, not like just haven't seen it, like had no idea, thought Cass was talking nonsense, couldn't believe it. So, Cass, perhaps you could enlighten our listeners of a little film called While You Were Sleeping.
I need to ask you a question.
Get down on your knee. It's more romantic.
Proposing, let him do it.
I am letting him do it.
Wow, Justin, I would be delighted to. Obviously, this is mind-blowing. This is my Roman holiday to the show. This movie, listeners, is the number one for me. Love this. I don't even know how I found this movie. Probably on a VHS tape, like at a garage sale. Quick synopsis of this movie. We have the beautiful Sandra Bullock.
What?
Yeah. Who basically works for the TTC, the subway in Chicago, as a teller to collect money. And she keeps seeing Peter Gallagher's character, who is a hunk, of a man, and he comes in every day. They never make eyes, but she basically fantasizes about this man. Then one day he gets pushed onto the tracks
No.
of the subway. Nobody else is around to help him, and the kids that pushed him on the tracks have vanished. So Sandra Bullock's character runs over, saves him from the tracks, but he is in a coma. Long story short, he's in the hospital. She meets his family, and somehow misinformation happens, and now she is engaged to him, and he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know who this girl is. So the whole family takes her in. And then, of course, we got Bill Pullman, who comes up as the brother, who is a cool guy, down to earth, artistic, woodsy man, who, of course, Sandra Bullock starts to fall in love with. So she ends up falling in love with Peter Gallagher's brother while he was sleeping. And boy, is it a love story of the ages.
Jeepers. Cass, I'm interested why we picked it.
Okay, well, there was just something so beautifully charming about this movie, and that I just honestly fell in love with as a kid watching it when I was younger. It's so funny because Sandra Bullock's character, she is somebody that I imagine my life to look like when I like move to the city. Like, she lives by herself, has like a 1-bedroom apartment. She has like a cat, like kind of has a sad life, but like she's just like sustaining herself. And that's like, I was like, I'm going to move to the city and I'm going to live by myself and kind of live an okay life. And like, that's how I envisioned my life being. And then I also, and because of this movie, envisioned somebody coming in and making it brighter. But I just really love their love connection and how she was so set on this one guy, and then everything gets turned around by somebody that she wasn't even expecting. And I think it's so good.
I love that, Cass. I find it so interesting that we see these movies when we're younger and we think, I'm going to have a normal life, and the thing that will set it apart is this serendipitous love story.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. And I think that actually something I've had to unpack over the years is that I was always thinking my life was incomplete if I didn't have somebody in my life. And I think that that is one of the downsides to these movies, is that her life always seemed a little sad, even to everybody around her, that like her friends, the people that lived in her apartment. She always kind of was like not living her best life until this guy came in. And I think watching it now, older, and seeing that and being able to recognize it, it's upsetting that these are the ideas that we put into people's heads, that okay, like you're gonna live alone and you're gonna be sad, and everything was always dark and gray in her apartment. But it's like, oh, then this guy comes and he's like the answer to all of your things. Yeah.
Well, I think from that answer, I got a lot of it fucking you up
yes,
specifically. But I find that it wouldn't be your tops if there wasn't one great thing about it, Cass. What is that thing that brings you back, even though it's kind of fucked you up over the years? What is that thing?
Oh, I'm so happy that you said that, because I am throwing a lot of shade toward this movie. But what I love about it too is that it's just these two really real people who just kind of fall in love with each other, and there's nothing grandiose about their love. They literally just enjoy spending time with each other.
Mm-hmm. So one would say that the serendipitous event of the rom-com aside, the real relationship they have is something that you would hope for, inspires you. You could just do without the coma false love narrative of it all.
Well, actually, I think I do love the coma part to it, because I think what that teaches her, I think, is she had such an ideal of love, of like what she thought love could be, with what love could be like with this man, with Peter Gallagher's character. But then as the movie unfolds, we realize that Peter Gallagher's character, although he's like really well put together, it's a bit of a stereotype, but he's like, yeah, a businessman who's so into himself. He's like a really shitty guy. And so I think what is kind of cool about this movie too is that she had such high hopes for who she thought he was and what their love would look like. And then it turns out it's not even that guy that she's into. And I think that that's actually a really hard thing to do in real life, is when you put so much onus on one person who you kind of admire, and then they kind of maybe don't turn out the way that you hoped. And she does a really quick 180 to jump from this guy to the brother. But yeah, I think that's like really hard. And I'm happy for her that she ends up with Paul, who is more aligned with who she really is.
Well, Cassie, we got a lot of great, a little bit of bad for this film, which I think really makes up the crux of a great rom-com. So finally, here we are for all the marbles. On our heart rating system, what are you giving while you were sleeping?
So this one, Justin, is so near and dear to my heart. And I would honestly, I'm a little biased, but I would give it 9 hearts.
9 hearts, Cassie.
Yes.
That's big time. That's big time.
And it actually is really silly now because I can recognize the silliness of it, but I really love being drawn into this movie and being taken away on this crazy adventure. And Justin, so this was your first time seeing this movie. What are some takeaways that you got from it? And also, because I grew up with this movie like you did for previous movies, so how do you look at this movie now?
The charm of the film really hits me, but the older I get, the more false these big events of the coma and the family, it feels more like a sitcom to me, which is great. So I can sit there and enjoy the film, but I don't think it really lands with me. I think I've already made up a lot of my big opinions about love, about relationships. So all I'm really watching is Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman fall in love, which is a great evening. And for that, entertainment alone, I'd have to give this film 7 hearts out of 10.
Nice. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. That resonated with you as 7. And where did it lose its 3 hearts?
I think it loses its heart for me in some of the old tropes that I now identify. The sheer speed of it. They're getting married by the end of it. And I think it's more of an older thought. Obviously, this is a film from the 90s, is this need to get married. This is how we show our love. So I think automatically on face value, if there's marriage in your rom-com, you're losing Justin points. And that's just my pure bias. I'm like, love is not marriage. To me, marriage is property. It's elitist. It's a class thing. It's there's so many other reasons behind getting married. And to me, that no longer sells love.
Yeah.
People are like, I'll marry you. I'd be like, hey, what's the trick here? I don't need that anymore. I just need 2 people sitting on a bench at the end of a movie. That's all I need. Maybe 1992 me would have been a lot more yes. But now I think the game has changed.
Well said. Well said. Okay. So that was while you were sleeping.
Definitely not a snoozer.
Hey! Who brought the dad back to the podcast?
I like marriage. Well, Cass, it's the time to move on to our next film.
It is.
Our number 5.
Our number 5.
With a bullet.
Top 5 things I miss about Laura. 1, sense of humor. Very dry, but it can also be warm and forgiving. And she's got one of the best all-time laughs in the history of all-time laughs. She laughs with her entire body.
Okay, Justin, this was actually another one of your picks.
It was.
High Fidelity.
Ooh.
Okay. All right, Justin. So can you tell us why you picked this movie?
Why I picked High Fidelity is it's one of my top movies ever. However, I put it in the top 5 rom-coms because it is a seminal film for teenage me. And as far as rom-coms goes, even if it's not necessarily the first one you think of, it's virtually the only movie I watched from like the ages of 13 to 15.
But with that being said, Justin, can you give us a little synopsis about what this movie is?
High Fidelity can really be summed up as male ego, sadness, and absolute need for love. So, High Fidelity, in a nutshell, is record store owner Rob Gordon's mission. He begins the film being broken up with by his newest long-term girlfriend, and he decides to instead put that pain outward against her. He thinks, maybe something's wrong with me. And that sets off the entire events of the film, where Rob lays out his top 5 all-time worst breakups, starting from when he was in middle school all the way to his 30s. And he reaches out to each one of these women with the simple question, why'd you break up with me? In hopes that he could find some reasons why it keeps happening to him, and maybe, just maybe, he could get back together with Laura.
Who at first doesn't even make his top 5 list.
Which is one of my favorite movies, parts of the whole movie, is the fact that he begins this whole, like, he does a lot of monologues to the camera, which I love as a man of the theater. But listeners, he is so hurt, and this is conveyed so simply in the movie by him muttering to the camera about she wouldn't even make the top 5, maybe the top 10. And then he reiterates this later by going, I was just moving one woman into 5 so that Laura wouldn't slip up there. And then he says that Laura is number 5 with a bullet. And classic male move to hide and shroud the truth until they're ready to give it up. Because he's hurt. He's hurt. Most of the movie, yeah. Rob is hurt. And then we slowly realize through most of the movie, he's done most of the hurting.
Totally. Exactly. Okay, Justin.
Yes.
This movie, I
need to hear your perspective on it.
Oh my gosh, Justin. I love that you brought this movie up because I think it is such a male perspective on rom-coms that I've actually never seen. And I think that it almost makes sense why I had never watched it before, because this isn't my typical rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't hate me. But as soon as he started talking, I was like, oh no, who is this sad loser of the character who's such a grump, who isn't a good partner in any way? And I'm like, you are a grumpy man. But I'm happy that I got to watch it and experience this movie. And it actually was just kind of like a mind bend from everything that I grew up with. So I appreciate that for that.
Mm-hmm. And I'd hate to speak for Cassie, but I feel like it's good to tell the listeners, I feel like this is a very important movie for men to watch. I feel like women will see it from a mile away of like, yeah, I've dated this guy. And I think the point is the lessons in this movie are less for the female spectrum of viewer. It's mostly for, do you see yourself aligning yourself with him? Do you feel yourself being on his side? Well, maybe, much like Rob himself, you should fucking turn and look at yourself. And maybe the answer is with you, you dumb schmuck. Yes.
There was a point where I was like, Laura, good for you. Do not go back with this man. He says something about, in regards to commitment, he's like, I've been living with one foot in and one foot out. And he's like, you can't do that. That leads you to death, basically.
Yeah.
Because you're like always waiting for the next thing. I forget how he says it very poetically, but you're like always waiting for the next thing, or you actually don't take action to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was like, actually, no, like I'm committed to this, to Laura. So the things that I would do to start a new relationship or to be flirty with somebody, I'm going to actually do that for the person that I care about and that I'm in a relationship with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this movie, at least when I was a teenager, made me realize that it it definitely is my basis for my opinion on so many perspective on love is that, oh, there's nobody, so many films and even people I know like, oh, there's just no one like, there's no one out there. Like, it's just like such like a slog. And this movie made me realize there's people literally out there if you put yourself out there, but that can be a trap too. It can be the same as the person going, oh, there's nobody, because you become a Rob who goes, great, I'm with somebody. Oh, this person is exciting to me now. This person's exciting to me now. So that ending to me, even when I was a teenager, was like, oh, like at a certain point, you got to decide to be with somebody. It's not just set in stone like every other rom-com I see where it's like, oh, well, they have to stay together forever because the movie told me they do.
And how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about the idea of being like, oh, I have to decide to be with somebody?
I think it's shaped a lot of how I see love today. It's like, I think love is a choice every day, not a conscious choice every day, but some days it's like, it's not always going to be fun to be in love with the person you're in love with.
I struggle with that a little too, because there's also a part of me that thinks there is that someone that will just be that one person. And then for me to be like, no, actually, it's my choice, kind of almost takes this like magic of this special person who is supposed to be in my life, or my, not other half, but like my special someone is like maybe not a real thing if I get to choose that I'm going to make this work with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's that weird thing of being like, I think it gives love more power, ourselves more power, but at the same time, you kind of lose that like magical quality that we grew up with, thinking that it would just swoop in. And like, these are all choices to feel this way. Like I think what we view as like movie love is just stars aligning lust. And then the next part, what love is choosing to go after that. Like in like the classic rom-com that's not high fidelity, there's like the chase to the airport. I think falling in love is the choosing to run to the airport. But we assume it's the first half of the movie where they met and it was fun and they had sex and they had a montage in the park. No, it's after the fight and going like, yeah, they're leaving. And then the movie should end with them sitting in their apartment and them getting on a plane. But the movie goes on for 10 more minutes because that person goes, no, I ... am in love with them. Like the greatest love story of his life starts as the credits roll, I think.
Right. I think you're so right, because you can tell that he is now committed to this relationship and committed to Laura and to their potential and making what they have better. Okay, Justin, well, there is a lot on this movie. Can you tell me one great thing about this movie and maybe one not so great thing about this movie?
I think one great thing about High Fidelity is the way it frames choosing to be with someone and how change is a fundamental and positive part of life.
Okay, Justin, and now how has this movie shaped the way you view love, and how, if it has, fucked up love for you?
I think I've sort of already mentioned it, but shaped me, I would say this film shaped me, especially younger, to realize that love isn't all love and hope and kisses and flowers, and it's also not just like big like end of day fights that will probably resolve, because no one fights this big unless they're totally absolutely batshit crazy about each other. That love is also just, I care about my records more than you, and like that it's petty and hard and can be mean, but that it's worth doing in spite of all those things. Like it can make us our worst, but hopefully it makes us our best also. So it made me look at love, especially younger, as less of like most of the movies we've watched as this unattainable beacon, this like hot burning sun, and more like a regular thing that you have to work at. And it's less grandiose, which is also tougher because then it's like everything else in your life. Love can be a lot like doing your taxes, but then sometimes you get a huge refund and you're like, yeah.
Yes, that's very true.
Whew. This movie.
Okay, Justin. So here we go. What on our heart rating system, what would you give this movie out of 10 hearts?
I think there's so many little demotions I could give it, but it's just, when you're just blinded by love, Cass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it 8.5 hearts.
Okay.
I understand it can't go above Roman Holiday because it doesn't have all those things going against it, but I can always watch High Fidelity.
Yeah.
Where would you rank it, Cassie? Someone who's less biased, hasn't like grown up with this movie.
Yes.
Can see it more as just a film. I can't see it as a film anymore. It's more of my life.
Yes, like a part of you now.
Yeah. So I'm completely biased. So no judgment on your rating.
Justin, I think I might have to give it 6 hearts out of 10.
That's it's better than 5.
Yes, because it actually was a good movie. I think it just was hard for me to fall in love with Rob's character.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the end, I was kind of like, okay. But I was like, all right, you did okay. But I actually I respect the movie a lot more and enjoy it a lot more just by us having a conversation and breaking it down, because I actually do think there's a lot of gold and gems into it. And also I think another good thing about this movie, which it should get credit for, is that it is, I feel like, very true to life. Mm-hmm. Which for me, when I like romantic comedies, I like the magic, the romance, like the trip mm-hmm. to Paris. Whereas this is, feels very real.
Mm-hmm. And which can be hard.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, that brings us close to the end of another episode of Love Is.
Wow.
Now, I gotta say, Cass.
Yeah.
This hasn't gotten me that close to what love is, but it sure was fun. And it pointed out a lot of the reasons I have a fucked up outlook on love. These movies may be good, but they can fuck you up.
Justin, I agree with you. I feel like this was a really fun episode. And I actually think for myself, this uncovered a lot of different areas of love for me. And can we even handle the real love?
Can we handle?
Can we handle
love?
Can we handle it?
Can we handle love, listeners?
Handle it?
Can we handle it? Like, if you looked love, real love,
yes,
dead in the face,
right in the eyes.
Would you handle it?
Yeah.
Dead.
In the face. In the eyes.
Could you?
Handle it.
Listeners, ask yourself this question.
Yes.
Truly ask yourself. Can you handle
it?
Can any of us? Can you handle it?
Yeah. Honestly, Justin, I think for me, we are slowly chipping away at this love block, and it's actually making me feel good, making me feel confused, making me feel happy, a little sad. But all around, I think we're getting a little deeper, and it's making me feel good.
But can you handle it?
I don't know if I can handle it. I think if I was actually to look at love for real, there's dead in the face, I would be like, I do really want you, love, but I think I'm a little scared. So I'm going to go find myself a relationship that I can complain about and feel a little more safe in.
Because you can handle that.
Because I can handle that. I know what to do about that. Because I've been watching rom-coms, watching commercials, listening to music that makes me know how to deal with those things. But if somebody's coming at me with pure love, I don't know if I can handle it. I'd like to think I could.
Can you handle that?
Wow. I'm going to journal a lot after this episode, my friend.
Journal, and then look love dead in the face.
Dead in the face.
Yeah. And go, hey, love, guess what?
Guess what?
I can't handle it.
I can't handle it, man.
Listeners,
yeah,
jump in the DMs. Let us know if you disagree. I don't think you can handle it. But if you can handle it,
love?
If you can handle it, let me know. Because I don't believe you. Can you handle it? Well, listeners, we can't forget that every week we share a little love story. Whether that's a personal anecdote, a song, a quote, something from underneath a bottle cap. Anything, really. So, Cassie, would you start us off with Love Is Love Stories?
And since this week we have been focusing on rom-coms, I, of course, took this bit from Never Been Kissed when Drew Barrymore's character, Josie Grossi, talks about her first kiss. Or talks about the moment of a first kiss. Here we go. That thing, that moment, when you kiss someone and everything around you becomes hazy, and the only thing in focus is you and this person, and you realize that that person is the only person that you're supposed to kiss for the rest of your life. And for one moment, you get this amazing gift, and you want to laugh, and you want to cry, because you feel so lucky that you found it, and so scared that it will go away, all at the same time. Come on! How can you not like that?
Whew.
I believe in that. I believe in that, Justin. I believe that exists. Or am I foolish to believe that?
Honestly, Cass, you and Drew Barrymore share one thing for me. You make me believe in love. You make me believe.
Wow. Okay. And we can stop it right there because thank you. Wow.
Whew.
All right, Justin. What do you got for us today?
Well, my God. Now that I got Drew Barrymore on the mind, it's going to be tough. But this week, I decided to dip my toe into the world of poetry with a little poem from the lusty love king himself. Lowercase e, Cummings. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. No fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the roots of the roots and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. Boy!
Woo! Beautiful. So beautiful.
Mr. Cummings. My God.
Justin, here we are again. I think it is safe to say that movies have provided us with more questions than answers.
Dang. I thought episode 2 would really crack wide open this whole love case. Where do we even go to next, Cass?
Okay, well, Justin, one thing that we didn't cover is what happens when things don't end with a happy ending. So, I know, in next week's episode, we'll be taking a look at our broken hearts.
Our tissues, as Love is Pot takes a stab at a heartbreak.
We're gonna dissect ours and your past relationships where they went wrong, and why the heck we keep on searching.
But save those tears for next week, listeners.
So for us at Love is Pod, whether you're in love or
out of love,
oh man, pull it together, man.
We love you, listeners.
It's just nice to say. I love you, Justin.
Love you, Cass.
Will you do that for me, stable boy?
As you wish.